While Britain was struggling with its trade deficit, its American colonies were also deeply intertwined with the tea trade. Colonists were enthusiastic tea drinkers, and Britain saw this as another opportunity for revenue. To assert control and raise funds, the British government implemented a series of taxes on the colonies, including taxes on tea. One of the most contentious acts was the Tea Act of 1773. Ironically, this act was intended to help the struggling British East India Company by allowing them to sell tea directly to the colonies, bypassing colonial merchants, and, crucially, undercutting even smuggled tea prices. Sounds good for the consumer, right? However, the colonists saw through the guise. The Tea Act, while making tea cheaper, actually reinforced Britain's right to tax them without their consent. It was seen as a manipulative tactic to force them to accept taxation without representation, the core grievance of the growing colonial unrest. Colonial merchants were also angered, as they were cut out of the tea trade. Protests erupted throughout the colonies. But it was in Boston that defiance reached its boiling point. On the night of December 16, 1773, a group of colonists, disguised as Mohawk Indians, took matters into their own hands. They boarded ships in Boston Harbor laden with East India Company tea, and, in a dramatic act of rebellion, dumped chests upon chests of tea into the water. This event, immediately dubbed the Boston Tea Party, was not a polite protest. It was a deliberate act of defiance, a symbolic rejection of British authority and taxation policies. The colonists weren't just protesting the price of tea, they were protesting the principle of being taxed by a parliament in which they had no voice. The Boston Tea Party sent shock waves across the Atlantic. It enraged the British government and galvanized colonial resistance. It was a pivotal moment, escalating tensions dramatically and pushing the colonies further down the path toward revolution. While the Opium Wars would be fought over trade and addiction on a massive scale, the Boston Tea Party was a smaller, but no less significant, conflict sparked by the seemingly simple act of taxing tea, highlighting once again how this beverage could become a flashpoint for power struggles and political upheaval. The British response to the Boston Tea Party was harsh, with punitive measures designed to bring the colonies to heel. But it was too late. The seeds of rebellion had been sown, and the events in Boston Harbor contributed significantly to the outbreak of the American Revolutionary War. However, even as they faced colonial revolt, the British Empire's insatiable desire for revenue and their continued dependence on the tea trade would soon lead them to even more ethically questionable and globally impactful strategies in their pursuit of economic dominance, strategies that would tragically unfold in China. With opium becoming the new, devastating tool cultivated in India, opium was smuggled into China by the British traders to create a new and highly lucrative market for British goods. This allowed them to obtain tea without depleting their silver reserves. The Chinese government, recognizing the devastating social and economic consequences of opium addiction, vigorously opposed the trade. In 1839, the Chinese government appointed Commissioner Lin to address the opium crisis. Commissioner Lin wrote in a letter to Queen Victoria. He argued that the opium trade was immoral. He emphasized the human suffering caused by opium addiction in China, both for individuals and for families, and appealed to her conscience and sense of justice to stop the opium trade. While this letter was a significant gesture, it ultimately failed to achieve its intended purpose. British government remained steadfast in its defense of the opium trade. Lin's issue confiscated and destroyed vast quantities of opium belonging to British merchants. This act, seen as an affront to British trade interests, ignited a military conflict. The British, with their superior naval power, quickly gained the upper hand. The Treaty of Nanking, signed in 1842, marked a humiliating defeat for China. It forced China to cede Hong Kong to Britain, open 5 treaty ports to foreign trade, and pay a substantial indemnity to the British. This treaty, and subsequent unequal treaties, severely weakened China's sovereignty and ushered in a period of foreign dominance. The Second Opium War was a further blow to Chinese sovereignty. The war saw Britain and France unite against China. The Chinese suffered further defeats, leading to the Treaty of Tianjin, which granted even more concessions to the Western powers. These wars had a profound impact on China. They weakened the Qing dynasty, eroded Chinese sovereignty, and opened the door to further foreign intervention. The Opium Wars serve as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked power, the abuse of trade, and the human cost of addiction. From the elegant rituals of afternoon tea to the rebellious act in Boston Harbor, from the devastating Opium Wars to the simple cup we might enjoy today, the story of tea is far more than just a beverage history. It's a story interwoven with global trade, cultural exchange, political power struggles, and even conflict. It reminds us that even the most seemingly ordinary things in our lives can be connected to complex historical forces and can become symbols in much larger human dramas. So, as you take your next sip of tea, consider the long and often turbulent journey this leaf has taken and the profound impact it has had on shaping our world.